next storyteller tonight came to the last show in San Francisco. She had just moved here from another city and felt that she'd found her people. And here she is on her second time at Bawdy up here on the stage, which I'm so impressed with. Please welcome Beth Hirsch.
My girlfriend hates me. I know this because she just looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I hate you." This would usually be the point in time where I left the room and tried to gather myself, but that would be awkward because we're shoved together in a public bathroom stall, and I'm holding her wedding train so that the violent diarrhea she's having won't get on it. Kelly's having a bad day. I am too, but it seems like a bad time to bring it up. Kelly, 22, a Jewish princess in a cupcake of a fucking wedding gown. Big, beautiful brown eyes, crying Kelly, who looks me in the eye and tells me that she hates me because her husband-to-be loves me more than he loves her. This is 4 months to the day since I first heard the term polyamory. I was 20. That's always the excuse, right? I was 20 and I hadn't had sex in 6 months. And a friend asked me if I wanted to go to the Wet Spot in Seattle. Wet Spot was a BDSM sex club. At the time, I knew nothing about it. But it turns out the Wet Spot is a 10,000 member strong sex positive beacon in Seattle. It's fantastic. It hosts the Seattle Erotic Arts Festival. It does workshops on everything from relationship communication to flogging. At the time, I didn't know that. All I knew at the time is they had a website that looked like it was put together by a child molester. And it was in a low cinder block building underneath a freeway overpass in the industrial part of town. When we showed up, I figured the survival rate was 50-50, but I hadn't had sex in 6 months. I don't know what I thought a sex club would look like, but not so much like a church basement, like cement floors, folding chairs, racks pushed over to the side, complete with an overly friendly, Mormon-esque type man telling us all about this amazing community that we had just joined by walking through the door. That man was Tim, my soon-to-be boyfriend and Kelly's soon-to-be husband. I gave him a fake name and a fake email address, and I ran home and created the email account. At the time, I hadn't considered the implications of dating someone who was dating someone else, because I hadn't had sex in 6 months. So he sends me an email, and he's like, "Yeah, we can date. You'll have to date my fiance as well." Okay, I know how to drive a pussy. I've got one. Sure. I was 20. Kelly was a masochist. I didn't know much about BDSM at the time, but I would walk around the Wet Spot and people would talk about her in hushed tones. That's the girl who gets kicked in the cunt. That's the girl who does this or that, and I wanted to be just like her. Turns out I'm not. I'm not a masochist. I don't get off in pain. Pain fucking hurts. But during the time, I was trying to be like her, so I played with a lot of mean fucking tops, the worst of which was Kelly herself. It doesn't strike you about how much someone likes you until you're tied to a chair with a soldering iron inches from your pussy. How much do you trust me with your husband to be? Kelly was a good top. She pushed me but never shoved me, and when she wasn't teaching me about BDSM, she was teaching me about polyamory. At one point, she flipped over a placemat and drew a fucking constellation of all the people I was now sexually connected to. Between her and Tim, a fucking spider web. Most of the 10,000 people that went to the Wet Spot. For For some people, that might look like the horror story of the spread of herpes, but for me, it looked like family. Speaking of family, 3 months into our relationship, Tim and Kelly's parents came into town because they were getting married. Both Tim and Kelly were super out. Like the most out people I've ever met. Between the two of them, they'd come out like half a dozen times. Out as bisexual, as poly, as kinky. They came out to their parents as kinky. So I was introduced as their girlfriend. Tim's mom, who was nice and Midwestern, just shut that out completely and ignored me. Kelly's mom, who was a kind of East Coast bitch, referred to me as that girl, your girl. And at the rehearsal dinner got up drunkenly and said, "They share her." So Kelly's mom was worried that I would come between them, and I had. So I'm sitting in a bathroom with a crying woman in a wedding dress who I've been dating for 4 months, but I don't necessarily like. And she looks at me and says a thing that I've been waiting for her to say since day one. I don't think this is gonna work. At the time, I don't know if she's talking about the wedding or polyamory or me, and I kind of just agree with all of it. But I look her in the eye, and I lie to her. I said, "It's gonna be okay. You're just nervous. Everyone gets cold feet right before the wedding. Hang in there." It wasn't okay. They got divorced 2 months later, which was 2 months shorter than the bets that we were taking at the table at the wedding reception. I know, supportive girlfriend. But in the end, it was okay. 6 years later, Tim is on his 3rd marriage. 5 years going, strong, open, married to a lesbian, fantastic. Kelly is monogamous and vanilla and got her degree in math. And I'm living in a happy, mostly sane triad with my loving, beautiful partners, Joy and Joe. So, when we are taught about relationships, we're taught about them monogamously, which means any relationship that doesn't end in someone's death is a failure. In polyamory, we spend a lot of time rethinking the ways that relationships can look, the way that they can function, the way that we realize we can shape them any way we want. Something that we also need to look at is we need to look at how they end. Tim and Kelly and I blew up spectacularly. But I learned so much from them. And I did love them a whole lot. And we all grew. And we all figured out more who we were and what we wanted. And it's been years since I've talked to either of them regularly, but Tim and Kelly were my first successful poly relationship.